and he wrapped the belt around my neck, threw me down on the bed, and was tightening the belt as he was sitting there smiling as I was struggling to breathe. And he didn't stop.
Crazy introduction. I know. I was there for that. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this conversation with Marcus and Erica, a married couple who have been together about 12 years now, have known each other for 14 years, and she credits Marcus, her now husband, with saving her life. And I have a riveting conversation with both of them about love, relationships, finding the right one, developing yourself to be a good man for a relationship, and more. Enjoy, and please leave a comment if you have any questions or thoughts. So you've basically known each other for like half your lifetimes, roughly.
Half of hers.
Half of hers, okay. So Erica, I don't know how much you've been keeping up with my shenanigans and how Marcus has been helping me, but he basically helped me rebrand recently to a channel about like because I'm technically a virgin and a involuntary celibate.
Wait,
Yeah,
technically a virgin?
I am a virgin. There, better way to put it. I'm a virgin. I've never had sex.
I was
Yeah.
like, I
T-
I need you to clarify the technically.
Okay, okay. Maybe with incel, I can be more specific because incel is a loaded term, carries a whole bunch of other connotations. But
She wouldn't know any of the
incel,
negative connotations.
okay.
Yeah, you
So
would actually have to explain the negatives to her.
okay, so there's like an online community that identifies as incels. It's become more popular in online media over the last few years, and they're sometimes linked to groups of like white supremacy or school shooters, or they're basically lonely young men who blame the world for their problems. And
Okay.
I'm trying to create content to help those men and also help myself, mainly by sharing my journey towards figuring out, what is a healthy man? What is it like to be
Okay.
a healthy man? Yeah. So I want to actually be more like Marcus in a couple of ways.
Okay.
And yeah, this conversation can help me learn some of that and hopefully share it with other people who can be inspired.
Don't be like me, Vamsi.
I see a lot of positive elements in you.
Be like who I
Idolize.
perceive myself to be rather than who I am.
Okay.
I'm a very flawed individual. Be better than me.
Okay. So, Erica, my question is what could an incel or a virgin or someone who's struggling with their love life and their regular life as well, their responsibility and so on, what could they learn from a married couple who's been through the ups and downs of life over the last, 12 years together?
What not to do?
So, what shouldn't I do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure.
Take your time.
I'm
Yeah, you did kind of get suckered into this. You're here now though, so might as
nah,
well.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, might as well do it.
Um,
Maybe I should make it simpler to start with. Um,
Probably.
I've
yeah,
actually,
that's
yeah.
complicated.
Okay, okay. So I'll go into some more specifics. Yeah. So what did you find attractive about Marcus when you first met him?
Well, he has an amazing heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he will go out of his way to meet people. I mean, to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know how many people we've picked up on the side of the road and taken them where they needed to go. Um, he was strong, and I like the alpha
Mm-hmm.
that that he is. I like someone who can take control, and so I don't feel like I always like have to control. And also, I felt protected. Although I can take care of myself, I like feeling protected.
So you also felt safe around him?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is he exuded certain qualities like compassion, kindness, caring about other people. And also, he was an alpha in the sense that he made you feel safe, he protected you, and also he led things. He took control, he took charge, he wasn't afraid to make decisions, but he didn't coddle you, it sounds like. Is that correct?
Oh gosh.
Okay. So he still
No.
treated you
No
as
cuddle.
independent, he still respected
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Hmm.
Do I want to go?
Yeah, go ahead. Just be open, honey.
So when we got together, I had a drinking problem.
Mm.
Um, and he he got me sober. He literally fed me pasta because he knew I wouldn't eat if he set it down in front of me. So he literally fed me to make sure I was eating.
Mm.
And still to this day, he makes sure that I eat because I don't always eat just because I lose my appetite. And he makes sure I eat at least once a day.
Mm.
I mean, very caring and I felt safe, but he also didn't coddle me either once we got to that point. Um, After all of that, it was just I can do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, uh, and he
But you
wasn't,
had to do something.
but I had to do something, yes.
Mm.
Whenever he started working, he was able, um, essentially to financially take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
He told me that I could either go to work or go to college or do both, but I wasn't sitting around and doing nothing.
Mm.
So I chose college, and he took care of me for the 4 years, 4.5 years it took me to get my bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of, he provided and he was kind, but he also pushed me to be the best person I could be.
Mm.
And if it wasn't for him, I would not be in the job that I'm in now. And I mean, I absolutely love my job.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of hurdles to overcome uh, with getting you to love yourself and to feel value in yourself. Um, there was a lot of walls to break down when it came to that. She had some self confidence issues and some um, self self issues,
Mm.
and I helped her with those. And what's great about our relationship is while I was helping her with all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was helping me and I didn't even realize it. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So like I thought I was sitting there, trying to make her a more well-rounded person and that I was trying to, mold her into a self-sufficient, person that when she looked in the mirror, she liked what she saw, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I was doing that, she was literally breaking down all kinds of walls and barriers for me that, I may have been ignoring for the majority of my life. um, but like, yeah, she helped me realize that, uh, that feeling is better. Being honest with yourself emotionally is better than dulling everything, right? So like I lived in a constant state of Midland, right? My highs were here, my lows were here,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept it in that very very controlled emotional environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then in our relationship together, my highs started going up, my lows started going down,
Mm.
and then I started having more range of emotions. Like, so I experienced emotions just like everyone else did, but like they were all tempered, if that makes sense.
They were
Um,
blunted.
right. And
Yeah.
I mean that's to do with how, I was raised and the childhood that uh, my defense mechanisms and stuff like
It's
that.
a common response to trauma and even depression because, yeah, our affect gets blunted, our emotions get blunted. But it sounds like, well, one thing that came to mind for me when you were talking was this idea that you can't help somebody without also helping yourself in the process.
I you know, I disagree with that
Okay.
because I've helped people that have ended up uh, using
Mm.
me. And I would say that that's helping someone who doesn't help yourself in the process, if that makes sense.
I see.
When
So,
when someone takes advantage of you
yeah.
because of your help and your aid and who you are as a person, that is you helping someone and then not getting anything in return.
So
Like
how did you know Erica was different when you
I
began to
didn't.
help her? You didn't.
No, I mean we broke up for like 2 months or something, because I was struggling um, with that thing. Like she broke up with me because I kind of forced her out because like I wasn't sure if like what I was going to like if the relationship was worth it for me.
Mm.
And then I think it was like 3 weeks. It took like 3 weeks for me to start missing her like on a daily basis, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I had never missed anybody before in my life. Um, I never felt that before. And so when it started happening, I didn't really know how to react or what to do,
Mm-hmm.
because it was new to me, and how I reacted in some ways was hilarious, and then some ways was super childish.
Could I ask Erica actually to tell that story?
Sure.
What story?
The story of how he reacted after you broke up for 2 months. 3 weeks into it, he began to miss you. What happened then?
He changed my voicemail to my phone to Spanish, knowing damn well that I didn't know Spanish.
So you
Then,
pulled a prank on her. Okay, continue.
yeah, well, then to top it all off, I guess since he hadn't heard anything, he decides that he's going to call my best friend and calls my best friend and tells her what he did. And she comes up and she tells me, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I was furious.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Not to Erica at the time, but
It was
I mean,
hilarious to her best friend though.
oh yeah.
oh yeah. Yeah, but then once we got back together, he was like, "You might want to be careful with who your friends are." And I was like, "Well, who you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh, well, this friend,
Mm-hmm.
which is my best friend." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "Well, I called and I told her what I did with your voicemail and she laughed about it." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I would have laughed about that too." She came up to me, like with tears in her eyes, she was laughing so hard. And then she's laughing at my reaction. And she is still my best friend. She was my maid of honor. And yeah, like that shit was funny. Like when it's not happening to you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it takes a
it was
close
very
friend.
funny.
Yeah, it takes a close friend to be able to laugh at you, but not in a way that is meant to tear you down, right? She's
Exactly.
always still there for you, of course, right? So,
Oh,
Oh, this
absolutely.
so this is interesting because what you've done so far, I'm just going to pull it back a little bit. You've showed me that for one thing, the alpha male is not someone who kind of distances women or like is purely about the masculine side. They're also someone who can make you laugh. They're also someone who's like kind, compassionate. They're caring. Like the fact that he fed you pasta while he was getting you sober, while he was helping you, because he
Yes.
he knew that you needed that at that time because otherwise you just forget to eat. And I can relate to this because I've gone days without eating just because I was doing other stuff. So
Yes.
it makes sense to me. So he
Yes.
genuinely cared about you as a person, and he went to extreme lengths to do whatever was best for you, whether you asked for it or not. But of course, if you said, "Hey, I don't want this," then he probably would back off, right? But you appreciated it at the time, so it worked out.
Yes. But I'm not sure he would have backed off.
Oh, you're
So,
not sure he would have backed off. Okay, so he may
no.
have even
look,
gone past your. Yeah.
an alpha male at its base is a protector, right?
Okay.
Like there are a few things that alpha males have in common,
Mm-hmm.
and being a protector is one of them. And she was something that I wanted to protect, you know. And even if that's from yourself, it's still something that you're protecting.
So, what does protecting her from yourself look like?
Exactly what I did.
Feeding her pasta? Help me understand, because I don't understand.
Well, okay, someone that's suffering from an addiction, um, is going to have different triggers and different ways of telling you whether they do and do not want help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a substance abuse counselor, and both my parents dealt with substances. You know, they had issues of their own.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been around that my whole life, and when I recognized it in her, I didn't want her going down a similar path, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell she wasn't happy with the life that she was currently leading, you know? So in order to attempt to protect her from, the choices and decisions that she was currently making, I offered as much aid as I could. And I mean, thankfully she accepted it. Even if she didn't, though, I still would have tried. It just would have been the end of the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if she hadn't accepted it, that's a line that I'm not willing to cross. I'm not willing to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't care enough about themselves to recognize that what they're doing is going to be detrimental to not just themselves but to me as well.
Mm.
There's a line, and at some point that line would have been crossed.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's protecting someone against themselves it's as easy as recognizing something and then offering aid.
Okay, I realize now I misunderstood you. I thought you meant protecting her from you, but you actually meant protecting her from her own self destructive habits and behaviors, helping
Mhm.
her be her best self. So I think this
Right.
is similar to what Jordan Peterson has said, something like wanting the best for the best in somebody,
Hmm.
which true friends, true family members will want for you because it means that when you degenerate in some of the many ways you can degenerate and are likely to degenerate at some point, they'll smack you over the head and they'll go like, look, you're demeaning yourself. You can do better. You can be better. So they won't validate the story that you tell yourself and then tell them, right? About
Right.
why you can't get
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Being honest is more important than reinforcing, belief systems or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's a mistake I've seen a lot of young men make, me included, which is that, and I fall into this trap without even realizing it. It's happened with Macy, it's happened with others, where I start to agree with them and change myself without even realizing it. It's subtle. But then
I've
I,
seen it.
but then I start to realize, like a few days later or a few weeks later, like, wait a second, that's not good for me and it's not good for them. So, what advice could you offer to young men to remain confident in themselves, like not compromise on their values, but still be sort of flexible and kind and open to growing these core values that make a good man, like protectiveness, providing,
So
being brave?
I've had several conversations with you
Mm-hmm.
in which I've mentioned that you need a purpose or a belief system. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's the foundation. If your foundation's built on unstable ground,
Mm-hmm.
then you've got nothing, in my opinion. Um, if you're not built on something, some kind of core belief system or some kind of uh, spiritual, religious, or something putting the power outside of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that you'll literally just crumble. And I think that young men that are struggling to find themselves aren't really struggling to find themselves. They can't define themselves because they don't have a belief system outside of themselves, if that makes sense.
So I know you've mentioned in the past that you're Christian and that God is your belief system outside of yourself. God is what gives you the power to sort of persevere even when you don't believe in yourself and when you're losing faith in yourself.
Yeah, you saved my life.
But my question is, at any point, God was there as the ultimate sort of belief system outside of yourself. What about Erica? Because it kind of sounds like at some points Erica gave you the motivation to push forward when you may not have had it if she wasn't around.
Are you insinuating that I didn't find Erica because God gave her to me?
No.
Because that's what I believe. It's a
Okay.
miracle that I'm with her.
Okay. So that's like that story of, what is it? There was a flood. It's this
Yeah,
parable, right?
man.
And then God
Yeah, there's a
works
flood
through,
coming in,
yeah.
and someone drives by in his truck after 6 inches of rain, and the man's out on his porch or something, and the guy says, "You better get out of here. It's about to flood."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Oh no, God's gonna take care of me, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And then a few hours later, the flood's risen up to the first story, and he's on his second story, and a guy, uh, rows by and says, "Hey, you better get out of here." I can bring you on board. Let's go. And he says, no, 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 God's got me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's sitting on his roof a few hours later. Water's rushing through his house. His house is about to go. Helicopter flies by. And they shout out at him, this is your last chance. You got to get up here. And he says, oh, no, God's got me. He's going to take care of me. And then the man dies and he goes to heaven or whatever. And he asks God, why didn't you save me? And God says, what are you talking about? I sent 3 people to save you.
Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly that. I think that the people that are within our lives are put there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that anything in our lives is random or happenstance. I think that everything that you do, um, I think that every choice that you make prepares you for something else, you know. And I think that we're all in a constant state of getting, preparing ourselves for something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what that is, and it may be as something as minuscule as, helping an old man across the road or something, or it may be something as huge as saving a life, or as, imparting wisdom onto a child,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever that purpose is. I think we're all here for a reason.
And is your life kind of built upon partly discovering that reason over time? Like, do you feel like you're closer to discovering your reason, your purpose?
I don't need to know that reason anymore.
You don't need to. Okay.
Yeah, I used to search for that. I used to think, like, why am I here? Like, what is the purpose? What is the meaning? All that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have those thoughts for sure. At this point, whatever I'm going to be used for, it's going to happen. And I just focus on trying to be a better person today than I was yesterday, and continually trying to do that. God's going to use me in whatever way he wants. I don't need to understand what his plan is or what his purpose is for me
Mm-hmm.
to know that he has one, you know?
And Erica, how do you feel about these beliefs? Do you mirror them or do you have slight modifications on them for yourself?
Mm. So yeah, I kind of mirror them, but I'm also not as religious
Mm-hmm.
or knowledgeable.
Scholarly, sort of.
Yeah.
Or
I don't
like
know if I
a
call it scholarly.
or like a scholarly
Yeah.
understanding of the religious texts or the theology, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, I believe in God, and I also believe that everything happens for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and people are put there for a reason. It's just Marcus has a more in-depth
Conception, verbally.
conception of it. Yes.
Does that mean that your understanding has come more from your life rather than like reading or thinking, but maybe just experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Experience for me.
Mm-hmm. Are there any stories you could share that might help me and the listeners understand some of your like practical experience with purpose, spirituality,
Mm.
God, all of that? Like what drove you before you met Marcus? What drives you now?
I mean, I didn't really have a lot of drive before Marcus.
Mm.
I So once we got together, like this, him coming into my life and me getting everything straight,
Mm-hmm.
that was, I feel that God put him in my life to help me, because I probably would have ended up dead in a ditch somewhere because I had no regard for my life. Like I didn't want to die, but I didn't take precautions. I wasn't very safe.
Mm. I see.
Yeah, so I probably would have ended up dead in a ditch somewhere if it wasn't for Marcus.
It's really interesting for me to observe how grateful you both are for each other in such a deep, convicted way, right? Like with conviction. And I'm just trying to think to myself, how do I find or build or both that, find and build that for myself and someone else, right? Find a life partner. And then also, how can I help other people discover that for themselves?
Well, I feel first you got to figure out what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, once you find out what you want, you go look for that. Once you think you found it, um, being honest, communication, that and appreciate even the little things.
Mm-hmm.
He brings me a soda, and I appreciate, I'm grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
She says things like that a lot too. She says, "I appreciate you."
Yeah.
yeah,
We used to do this thing. We don't do it as much anymore, but we used to do this thing where we used to say, "You make me smile real big like this," and we did real big smiles and stuff. And like,
Mm-hmm.
verbalizing that you appreciate and that you value the other person is, I mean, it's important.
It's constructive. You're building towards what you know you feel, but also what you want to feel in the long run. Yeah.
yes,
But I mean, she feels appreciative of me for a number of reasons. And hearing where she believes she would be without me, um, you get an idea of the where her appreciation is coming from, and mine's totally different because if I hadn't met Erica, chances are I'd be a multimillionaire. No, no joke. I mean, I'm not like
yeah,
flipping out
for
about it.
sure.
But
I
you
would
would be unhappier even though you were a
I
multimillionaire.
would be an emotionally stunted, not very well-rounded multimillionaire. Correct.
Right.
And I value those things. I value the things that she's given me way more than I value the wealth that I would have accrued doing the things that I was doing before I met her.
Yep.
Um, like I was mining Bitcoin when it was $1.30 per coin
Mm-hmm.
when I met her. I had like 20 Bitcoin on my tower and stuff, and like I was hard into it because libertarian. I was like, heck yeah, monetary system that the government can't control. Let's go,
Yep.
Um, so like my life would be totally different, but I don't think it'd be better. I
Mm.
think that having her in my life, she's done she's done more for me than 10-12 million dollars could ever do.
Mm-hmm.
And she's worth far more than that. So like my appreciation comes from a different place than hers does, but it's still the same, just as valid feeling that we have for each other.
Mm. I'm really
I mean,
glad you went into
without
that.
her,
Yep.
come here, Bubs. Without her, I wouldn't have this one. Oh, hey, Bobby, come here. Come on. Oh, he's gonna be shy. Oh, yes, I know. I love all of you, but he's my
Is
baby.
that Inigo or
Oh, yes, this is
Yes,
Inigo Montoya.
Inigo Montoya?
pasta.
Um,
And that's your
guys, get
profile
down.
picture on Discord is Inigo as
Yeah.
a puppy. Yep.
Yes.
So this is basically your family, which is great.
Well, he's done.
Yep.
He's done a lot for me too.
Mhm.
Like, and like nowhere near as much as she's done, right? Of
Mhm.
course, but he's done. He's done quite a bit for my emotional growth as well. Taking care of someone or something on that level, and feeling that like it's an unbreakable, like, just complete love, like, that he feels towards me, and I can sense that,
Mhm.
and that's an amazing feeling. Humans are fickle, and dogs are just loyal. They're amazing creatures. Quit it, guys. Quit it. But yeah, I wouldn't have them if it wasn't for her. I would have never been a dog person,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't have any of my life without her. And it's all been her choice. So like that's another dynamic that uh, our relationships probably differ from most relationships. She makes almost almost constantly all the decisions in our relationship.
Erica, could you describe what that's like? It sounds like you have a sort of, rather than a patriarchal relationship, you have like a matriarchal relationship where the woman leads.
So yes and no.
Okay.
So, yes, I make most of the decisions.
Mhm.
However, if he is adamant against one decision, it's done
Unless it comes to certain things,
unless it comes to certain things.
like all the major decisions in our
Oh,
life.
except for one, having a baby.
No, all the major decisions
Well,
in your
yeah,
life.
major
I was
decisions.
adamant against marriage. I was like, no, not getting
Yeah,
married.
that is
We are
true.
married. I
Yeah,
was adamant about not getting off the truck until we could afford to buy a house.
true.
We got off the truck.
So,
I was adamant about not getting a dog. We have dogs. I'm adamant about not having kids from the beginning. And now we're talking about having
well,
kids.
he puts his foot down for a couple years. And then slowly I pick it back up.
No, she gets what she wants almost 100% of the time.
Almost all the time, but I mean,
Eventually.
eventually.
No,
Well,
I lay down
yeah,
groundwork. If it's going to be
yeah,
if it's going to have a negative impact on our lives, like a true negative impact on our lives, I won't let it happen.
yeah,
So there is
situation.
a realm of possibility in which I will tell her no. There have been several times where I've told her no. And when I do say no, that is it.
Yep.
She's pretty good about that. So like if I list out my reasoning and I tell her no, we can't do it because X, X, and Y or whatever, she's like, okay, I understand that, and she doesn't really press the issue much. But like
Mm.
if I just tell her no because I don't feel like it or whatever, that's not an acceptable answer,
Right.
obviously.
Well, if you're going to say no, I need to know why. I need to understand. And if I can understand it, then it's done.
Sure.
Because then you agree. Then you both understand why it makes sense.
No, it doesn't matter if she agrees. She's lying. She understood why I didn't believe that marriage was a thing and why I didn't want marriage. Right?
Yeah,
It made sense to you, right?
it did.
Did you care?
But after 8 years, damn it, it's about damn time. Dude,
I
Didn't
mean,
care.
you know
he
Jay, right?
wasn't leaving anyways.
Uh,
So what's it matter?
it's funny because Jay and Donna have been together for about 13 years now, and neither of them believes in marriage. But that's just because they have this strong sense that the government has no place dictating their relationship. That's all.
Well, that's the thing. It depends on what you believe marriage is,
Right.
right?
If you
And
believe it's like
where,
a sacrosanct commitment, then I can see why it's meaningful, right? So from your perspective, maybe you already felt committed to for a lifetime with Erica, but from Erica's perspective, maybe marriage would really seal the commitment and make it tangible. So I can understand both sides if that's how it was.
yeah, from my perspective, we were already married in God's eyes.
Basically.
I
Yeah.
I was committed to her. She was committed to me. We weren't going anywhere. That was
Yeah.
the end.
Till death do us part.
She wanted to put it on paper so she could put a ring on the finger. That was the deal.
I mean, the ring
And
is
my last
tempting.
name.
And,
Yeah,
and she wanted to change her last name,
Okay.
which is funny because now she knows the secret handshake.
I do
For
know the
your whole
secret
family?
handshake.
Nice. Your family has a
I
secret
didn't.
handshake.
I didn't even know there was a secret family handshake till the night we got married.
Wow.
And I thought he was joking. And he walked up to his sister and put his hand out, and they did it. And then he went to his other sister, and she did it. And then he went to his dad, and he did it. And I
So
had no idea. 8 years.
so hold on, Marcus, could you really say you were married if she didn't know the secret handshake until you
Yeah,
actually got married?
I did not have.
she wasn't a Tyree.
I did not have the last name.
So what
The rules are, and they state clearly
you got to be a
that you
Tyree.
have to be a Tyree to
So
know the
what if she
Tyree
said
handshake.
what if she was like, Marcus, I want to be a Tyree. We don't have to get married. I'm changing my legal name. Would you have been fine
Then
with
that
it?
would have counted, yeah,
Okay,
for
fair
sure.
enough.
We
Cool.
had already talked about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she already said that if we end up having kids, we
Mm,
don't have to get married, but if we end up having kids, that she's gonna change her name to make it easier. And I
And
was
the
like, oh
kids will
yeah,
be
sure, no problem.
the kids
And
will
if
learn
she
the
would
secret handshake.
the day that she would have changed her last name, she would have learned the secret handshake. Yeah,
Interesting.
because then she would have been a true Tyree.
Okay, serious question for you guys. At what age will you teach your first kid the secret handshake?
What do you mean? They learn it growing up. It's actually
Yeah.
like, you know how some people have passwords
Uh-huh.
or like, don't get in the car with this stranger or whatever,
Sure.
like unless they know the password or whatever. Well, that's kind of where the secret handshake came from.
So it's how you know someone is safe or
Right.
trusted. They're in the
Mhm.
inner circle of the family. I see.
Right.
Okay, so I feel like we've gotten a little bit off track from what incels might find useful. And this is on me, right? I go on tangents all the time,
Your
so don't worry
fault.
about it. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my responsibility. Uh, but I think some of this dynamic, like I think when people see the dynamic you two have, a part of them, at least for me, a part of me lights up where I'm like, I want to find that for myself. I want to find whatever that looks like for me. I at least want to die knowing I tried. I don't want to die thinking that I didn't try hard enough, with regrets or anything like that. So I think Erica's advice was good, going back to that, which is like figure out what I want, then go out and look for it, find it. And once I find it, be honest with myself, because maybe I'll discover what I thought I wanted is not really what I wanted, and then repeat the
Exactly.
cycle. Yeah.
That was very much the case for me. What I thought I wanted is not what I actually wanted.
Mm.
She knew what I wanted, and she told me what I wanted.
She knew what you wanted more than you did.
Sure.
And you also knew what she wanted more than she did in some regard, like helping her quit drinking and all of that, find drive and purpose, and end up at university with this job that she loves
I
now,
think that's I think that's something that everyone wants though.
which is what, like success in some form or purpose in some form,
Purpose,
drive,
yeah. Purpose in
purpose.
some form.
I
Yeah.
agree, because yeah, when you're just kind of drifting around, it's it feels empty. At least that's been my experience. Feels meaningless. It might be pleasurable, but it's not fulfilling. It's not
Right.
joyful.
Right.
Um, So okay, so yeah, we're trying to figure out, how can we help people find that for themselves. So Erica, what were your relationships like before Marcus? What did you learn? What lessons did you learn from like your first relationship, your second one, and so on? And what can I learn from my first or second relationship, however it might be? How can I go into it with
So,
the right attitude?
so I've only had like 3 serious relationships.
Okay,
Um, don't know if I want to go into this.
you can skip it then. That's fine. I have no issues with that.
You might as well. I mean, as long as you're truthful and honest, it's not gonna hurt you. I mean, is it gonna hurt you? It might help someone.
Also,
All right.
one sec. I got to replace the battery on the GoPro. It ran out. Looks like it
Yeah.
can go 40 minutes per battery.
I mean, that's my thinking, honey. If you help one person and it doesn't actually hurt you to talk about it, like, I mean, you might as well try, right? I mean, if you can't do it, I get it. But I mean, you're a pretty independent and solid in your belief system at this point, right? You ought to be able to talk about stuff. Might actually help you a little bit too. I mean, in NA and AA, I mean, they talk about their struggles all the time, and it's because getting it out
But
in the open helps.
I don't even think about this stuff anymore, though.
Well, it's not because you don't think about it every once in a while. It's because, it's so far removed from you that you can ignore it, you know?
All right. So you want to know a little bit about my past like first, second, whatever relationships?
Well, so you don't need to go into uncomfortable detail or anything traumatic. Like, I'm not sure what you're trying to avoid talking about. So you could even just
No,
go over like lessons, right? Like what? Because I know. Okay, maybe I should start with a simple question, right? Is it too late for me to start dating at age 27?
no,
No. Okay,
it's never too late.
it's never too late. Okay.
Never too late.
How do you know that?
Um, well, because everybody deserves love. I mean, and if they want to share their life with somebody, I mean, who, who's to say, who would we be to put an age cap on that? I mean, there are people that are married for 40 years and then their spouse passes away and then they go on to date and then get remarried and it doesn't matter about age.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is, are you happy? What do you want?
Okay.
Kind of matters about age going the other way though.
Absolutely.
Because I can tell that from the experiences I've had with friends and stuff. Like for example, talking with Jay, he started dating in like fifth grade. So I'm starting at 27. He started at 10, right? So I'm like 17 years sort of late to the party. And that means that probably the people I date, let's say I date a 30-year-old woman, it's going to be a very different kind of date than if I was 20 and dating a 20-year-old woman or 22-year-old woman.
Is very true.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
what can I expect, sort of? Or what should I expect? What should I look for?
I mean, that's something that I feel like you would have to figure out. Like,
Okay, it's individual.
so yeah, it's individual. So like, are you looking for someone that would stay home and cook, clean, and you just go and work and you provide? Are you looking for somebody that goes out and works? Or like, it's all, do you
Okay.
want to have kids? Do you not want to have kids? Like, it's so many aspects.
Okay, so I grew up not really wanting kids. I also grew up not really wanting marriage because of my mom and dad's marriage. They ended up getting divorced when I was 13. We came to Canada and then they got like separated and then divorced. And I kind of grew up thinking that that was what all marriages would be like, that both parties are kind of always arguing, yelling at each other. They're abusive in different ways. Like my dad was physically abusive, my mom was emotionally abusive, bad recipe. Um, and now I realize, like, actually, because I've been interviewing different married couples, I'm like, oh, there are good marriages out there, so I can build one. So I'd say the person I'm looking for. So my non negotiable, I think the real one is like honesty. That's the only one. Like, I just don't like lies. I don't tolerate them in my life, even with friends. Um, and I guess I am looking for someone who wants to build something together, right? Like, be ambitious. Either we're building businesses or a life. Like, we don't accept the status quo. We don't tolerate mediocrity in ourselves or each other or in life in general, in our friends and
Hmm.
so on. So basically, just having high standards for what a good life is and seeking it out proactively, doing the hard work that it takes to figure it out and build one together.
I mean,
You don't have to fill the void if you don't want to, honey. Like if you didn't actually have something to respond with, you know?
oh, sorry, I was
I know you
about
were
what he said. Sorry.
verbalizing. I know that. I just wanted to make you
You,
not feel like you had, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
perfectly okay with like long periods of silence. I think they contribute to better conversation in the long run. But that's the reason I asked you about your first relationships because I figured maybe you learned some lessons in the first relationships that helped you handle your relationship with Marcus in a healthy way. Because that's something I've been worried about for myself, which is what if I meet the right person, but I'm so inexperienced that I mess it up? You know, I do the wrong thing. I'm either too attached or too detached or whatever. I just make mistakes and then I lose them or I lose that opportunity because I didn't prepare myself well enough.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and whatever. I'll talk about them.
Okay.
So my first relationship was when I was 14.
Hmm.
It was extremely abusive.
Okay.
Um, when I would say no or do something that he didn't like, I'd get I'd get hit.
Mm.
So for about a year, because it didn't start until about 6 months in, so for about a year, I would go home and like I'd have a black eye, and I remember telling my mom, oh, I was jumping on the trampoline and my legs gave out, and I accidentally, kneed myself coming down from the bounce and making up all these excuses. Um, and
Why do you think you made those excuses out of curiosity?
I don't know,
I have a guess. Guilt and shame.
possible, yeah,
Because often domestic abuse victims feel like they're to blame to some degree for what's going on, that they're responsible for it. And then admitting it means that they kind of admit, they open themselves up to scrutiny, right? It's like, because
yeah,
victim blaming is very common even from victims, unfortunately. Um, and
yeah.
it might also feel like you wanted to protect him. I'm not sure how you felt about him, but at the time you may have wanted to protect him as well.
Yes. I mean, it was my first serious relationship, and
So you think that it was based on mainly your view of your own choices?
Like,
Or you think that it was like trying to protect him from what they would think about him?
I think I was more of a protection for myself.
For yourself.
Like, I didn't want anybody to know that that happened.
Mm.
But
Because you didn't want to get judged for your choices.
exactly.
By the way, you were 14. How old was he?
16.
16. Okay. And at the time, as you went through this relationship, did you like learn? Did it start to feel like, okay, this is what a relationship should be like? This is what it is like? This is what it must be like because it was your first one? Did it start to define what relationships were for you? Or did you still think like, oh, this doesn't have to be what relationships are like. It's just this is how this one happens to be, but it's not all of them.
Mm, with me, it was I was accepted, even though he beat me. I, f- I felt wanted.
Mm. And feeling wanted but abused was more comforting than feeling unwanted and not abused.
Correct.
Got it. Fair enough. I can relate to that.
And if it wasn't for my mom, I don't know what would have happened. My mom took my cell phone. She stopped all communication. She started taking me to and from school. She would not let me out of her sight. And she got me out of that because when she caught on, she she put a stop to it. My mom saved
I'm very thankful that she did.
me too. Um, but what I did learn out of that was don't let anybody treat you like that.
So you learned
And
self respect.
yes, as well as if it happens once, it's going to happen again. No matter what they say, no matter how many times they apologize,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen. It's going to happen again and again and again until you leave. Uh,
So when you trust someone's words and their actions contradict their words, take their actions more seriously
Correct.
and don't listen to their words anymore once they do that.
Correct.
Got it.
Um, so then my next relationship, it happened about 6 months after that first one. Um, and I actually ended up marrying him at 19.
Wow.
Um, yes. Uh, so we were high school sweethearts. Um, everything was going well until it wasn't.
Mm.
Um, he started working at a prison and he started treating me like an inmate. And then, all right, give me a second.
Take your time.
So we were home one night, and my cousin, she was staying the night with us, and he hollered for me, and I walked through the bedroom door, and he was hiding around the corner with a belt. And he wrapped the belt around my neck, threw me down on the bed, and was tightening the belt as he was sitting there smiling as I was struggling to breathe. And he didn't stop until I was finally able to like gasp my cousin's name. And as soon as he heard her get up off the couch, he took the belt off and acted like nothing happened. And I had bruises on my windpipes from the buckle. And a week later, I took the next week to pack my stuff and I left. And if it wasn't for that first relationship,
She might have stayed.
I might have stayed. And in my opinion, being punched and stuff, as it is bad, but a belt around the neck while you're struggling to breathe and they're just sitting there staring at you, smiling as they're tightening it tighter and tighter.
He could have killed you.
that's on another level. So
Hmm.
if it wasn't for that first relationship, I would have never gotten out of the second one. But yeah, a week later, I moved out. I filed for divorce and divorced him. And between those two, it made me realize the sign. So if it happens once, it's going to happen again. So now I have the courage, no matter, because I had nothing. I was a stay-at-home wife when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I had no job. I had my car. I had nothing. I left. I gave him everything. I walked away with nothing just to get out. And that's then when I spiraled into my dream.
Because she had nothing, she felt as if she was nothing.
Mm.
She she had she had a real problem with having any kind of self identity or self confidence because she felt like there was no if no one loved her and wouldn't treat her right, that she shouldn't treat herself right, right?
Mm.
Because when you get told that you're worthless over and over and over again, you start to feel worthless, And so she went into how long was it? About a year?
Almost, because I know it was a year because it started. So I left in October, and like 2 weeks after that, I started drinking. And I was drinking that was October of 2010. And we got together November 2011. So right at a year, I would
Yeah.
say.
So she went into a year of worthlessness,
Mm.
and she got used and abused during that feeling of worthlessness too. Um, because when you don't have self confidence or pride, at least some form of pride in yourself, or belief in yourself, or belief in anything really at that point, then it's really easy to get used and abused, um, by people, by groups, by yourself. You can convince yourself of anything if you don't think you're worth anything.
Yeah, I've noticed that the times I was most susceptible to being recruited into things like cults, or I even almost became a Mormon. And I realized it was because I was seeking belonging, and it was very easy to weaponize those feelings against me. But yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to you, Erica. I deeply appreciate that you
Mm,
shared that.
So we can
I mean,
continue talking, but she needs to smoke a cigarette at this point.
Sure,
So
that's fine. Yeah.
we're gonna
mm,
take a
um,
quick bio. But yeah, man, like, so she's very, very lucky that she learned from the first one, right? And it's really sad to say that, oh, it's very lucky that she, learned from abusive relationship. But I mean, honestly, the second one could have killed her, you know,
I
because I
understand.
mean, the first one was dangerous, but I mean, I know this guy, right? And the only reason why this guy is still, amblic, that, like, he has his limbs and stuff, is because I respect her feelings on and her wishes on the matter. Um, and I've had plenty of reason since to retaliate or to try and get exact some sort of vengeance or whatever,
Hmm.
because he's reached out to me several times, since we've been together, because he was a friend of my brother's. So,
actually, the only reason why he was friends with your brother was because of me.
like, when it comes to my wife, like, I'm very protective, you know and that letting that lie is not something that sat with me very well. But I, she wants things. She just wants to leave it alone and move on, and I can respect that. So I've never said anything to him. I didn't even respond when, you know, things were thrown my way from him and whole 9 yards.
Not a lot of people know that story either. They about to.
They about to indeed.
Yeah.
Why,
So
you think your family's gonna watch your interview, honey?
no. So my sisters don't know. My mom, like my whole family doesn't know because he was actually my cousin's friend
Mm.
for years, like since he was in elementary school. His mom and my aunt were best friends. And for some reason, I don't want them to know because I don't want them to hate it.
You don't want to cause family drama unnecessarily, sort of.
I
Or is
don't
it
know if
more?
it would be family drama. He'd definitely get his ass kicked
Mm.
for sure.
Uh-huh. If your grandfather was alive, he'd be dead
Yes.
if he knew.
Yep. My grandfather probably would have killed him
Mm-hmm.
because he said, I only have a few more years and I don't mind rotting in a cell."
Oh. Her grandpa's crazy and racist.
Mm.
Well, was. He's passed now.
I would have loved to interview him if he was around.
Oh, he was a woodworker too.
Really? Wow.
Yep. Yes,
Yeah.
he was.
I had a few decent conversations with him before he got um to the point where he couldn't hold conversations.
So extremely protective over me. I just found out that he had a talk with Marcus.
Yeah. Well, he was your male. I had a talk with him.
Did you have to ask his permission to propose to Erica?
No.
He already gave it years before with a
Yeah, he already gave it.
Okay. But it
yeah,
makes
he gave
sense.
it
Yep.
after that first initial talk that he had with Marcus.
Yeah, he
Mm.
knew that he wasn't going to be around
For
for
that.
our wedding. Yeah,
He was though.
He was?
well, no, he knew he wouldn't be able to cognizantly give he didn't know if
Yeah.
he was going to be around. Like
Right, right.
he
He
had a
wasn't
feeling.
sure.
He died less than a month after our wedding.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's the final question I want to ask you to actually is just because I know a lot about Marcus's backstory. I didn't know much about you, Erica, until you told me today. But it seems like together, the both of you have had to weather a lot of loss and grief and just tragedy. And yeah, I'd like to just hear what advice you could give to younger people who are going to face that in their life. It's inevitable, right? Every life is going to be filled with that, or it already has had a lot of that. I've been lucky enough to not have had too much of that, but I know it's coming my way. Do you have any advice for someone to weather that and grow from it rather than break under it?
Um, just reach out. If you feel yourself spiraling or you think about drinking or doing drugs or anything like that, just reach out to somebody.
Hmm.
Having somebody sit there and just listen, it does a lot.
Mm-hmm. I can
So that
imagine.
would because unfortunately the person I had to reach out to was in the same boat I was. And we were in it together with the drinking
Mm.
and partying and doing shit we shouldn't have. Um,
And at the time, that was just both of your coping mechanisms to deal with whatever you were going through.
yes. Um, I got a little worse off than she did,
Mm.
and we actually stopped talking for a few months because she backed off and she realized she didn't want to live like that anymore.
Mm.
Um, but it was me who pulled away because she stopped partying, and all I wanted to do was stay drunk. So that's all I cared about at that point.
Mm.
And it was actually 2 months after I got with Marcus
Mm-hmm.
that he talked me into reaching out, and best decision I ever made. If I had the best friend that I have now, I would have reached out. I mean, she was still my best friend. She's still my ride or die, and she always has been. But two people that have the same problem can't help each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she was still coping with her own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame her at all. for any of that. Um, because she did what was best for her when she realized, and I didn't. And I pulled back.
Mm-hmm.
So have a person. So when you start spiraling, you can reach out and they'll just listen. That's the biggest thing for me.
And she doesn't have a lot of friends, or didn't. She does now. She, I had to kind of weasel in friends to her to where she could see that, they're having people that you can rely and trust and all that jazz is I mean, it's very important.
Yep, one of the people that I know I can reach out to other than my best friend actually used to be Marcus's friend.
Mm.
And now that I started work, I have people I can reach out to. Like, so sometimes I have anxiety attacks
Mm-hmm.
just out of nowhere. I actually had one today. And I looked at one of my coworkers because he was trying to help me and then he realized something was off. And he's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overstep with this. I could tell that you really weren't, you know, it seemed like you were a little upset with me." Like I literally had to run outside. I ran outside and started crying today
Mm-hmm.
for no reason. I don't know what it was, but it was when I came back in and I was like, "No, it wasn't you." And I told him what happened. He's like, "Let's take a step outside and take a breather." And we just went outside, watched it rain, and just chilled for a minute.
Mike's a good friend.
That wasn't Mike.
Was it
Which one, that?
Diego?
It was Johnny.
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 It was Johnny. Because Johnny,
I haven't met Johnny, so
you haven't met Johnny
yeah,
yet.
I can't.
But
No, Diego's
A meme.
oh
another story.
Jesus, and we're not going to tell that story
No, don't.
either.
Yeah,
Don't tell that story.
it's fine.
I'll have to tell you.
So this is really meaningful to me. It's interesting because when you look at classic abuser cycles, one of the common traits is that they isolate their partner from their support group, right? They try to make them less and less able to reach out to others and more reliant on that person, which makes them more codependent and then more easily able to be controlled. Marcus has done for you the opposite. He's built up your
Yeah.
friend group because he realizes that you need that. It helps you. And of course, what helps you helps him, right? You're together. What helps him
Yes.
helps you as well. So I think that's a very
Yes.
healthy sign.
Yes. Um, absolutely. Because with the first two, my friends were their friends. So when it was over, I had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I had nothing. So now it's like I actually haven't. Well, I had friends, but they weren't real friends.
I understand.
And now I have real friends. So now the two people at work.
Differentiating the two is really hard for her because she puts on such a facade of that friendship is just something that she gives freely.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of the time, or well, until recently, she would get back not friendship, and she would accept that as friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And so distinguishing the two is something that actually in the last few years, I would say we've been working on. Um, and now she sees the difference. I mean, at the wedding was clear cut, dry as can be. The people who showed up for her versus the people that didn't. She saw what a real friend is versus um, one that's maybe a little less of a real friend, I guess. I don't want to say that they're not real friends, but I would call them fair weather friends, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But in the wedding, when she was when she was the bride and her bridesmaids had to help her, there were there were a couple people that were there for wholeheartedly,
Mm-hmm.
and then there were some that were just not they were just there to wear a pretty dress and be in a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, that helped her out a lot.
To
To
realize who was there for her and
Yeah,
yeah,
to see
who
the
wasn't.
dynamic,
Right.
right?
Yeah, so that's why, like at work, a couple of the girls tried to be quote unquote friends with me, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew from the bat. I knew.
That wasn't friendship.
Yeah, it wasn't like, yeah, it was fun to hang out with them, have a girls' night, but someone that I could actually go to,
Mhm.
it just not. It was just someone that I could hang out with